Great honour to welcome you here to our wonderful webinar subject with Melanie Coshot, who is a IOD member in Cambridgeshire, in our Cambridgeshire branch, and is owner of Blue Diamond. I can from my heartstrings, I can tell you that Melanie's amazing at her role. She chats to people about their career and where they actually want to be. She uses a lot of incredible tools, and I'm absolutely delighted that she could take us on this journey today regarding imposter syndrome. Now, I couldn't quite believe it when Melanie said that she was an accountant prior to setting up her own business. And it's very awful to be so stereotypical. And the reason I couldn't believe it is because she's so smiley and bright. But no, that's wrong. Forgive me. Accountants are amazing people. And you get stereotyped, which is very wrong. So right, enough from me rabbiting. I hope you enjoy the session. Melanie has said that if you would like to ask a question, by all means, pop your hand up, jump in, whatever you'd like to do. Or if you would like to pop a question in the chat box on the side, we encourage you to do that. And then I will address those questions to Melanie at the end of the session. Also, if you get 2 minutes now, please pop your details in the side there, maybe your Twitter feed or your LinkedIn feed, because it's great. IOD events are about connectivity. We'd love you to be able to connect with each other. So yeah, somebody's doing something in my kitchen. It's got very loud, so I'm going to turn myself off, and over to you, Melanie. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you for that introduction, Simone. I do hope that my internet is going to behave itself during the next hour, 55 minutes, hour. So fingers crossed for that. So yeah, I've been running my own business for approximately 2 years now, and I help mid-career professionals either rediscover passion in their work or identify their next challenge. And as part of this, I do one-to-one coaching, and I also run workshops. Now, my workshops used to be face-to-face, but since the beginning of the lockdown, I've brought them all online, as you do, to try and kind of adjust to the situation. I've got 8 different topics, and imposter syndrome is actually one of the first topics that I set up about 18 months ago. I've got some familiar faces here in the virtual room today, so thank you very much for coming along. And I've got a few people that I don't know as well, which is also great. Imposter syndrome is one of my favourite topics, I have to say. So thank you very much for joining me today. Now, I typically run this as a 2-hour workshop. I've also done this as a talk, and I've done various different sizes of workshops in between. So I am going to shoot for 45 minutes with this, but hopefully it won't get too kind of constrained or whatever. I would love you to ask questions as you're going along. So if you have a question, I think there's like a put your hand up reactions button down at the bottom. If you want to put any questions in the chat, I think Simone's going to be fielding this, but hopefully I will leave some time at the end to ask questions as well. So let us get on with imposter syndrome. So some of the time you might see me like this, and some of the time you might see me looking through my little hole. So welcome to this workshop for the IOD. I'm Melanie from Blue Diamond, and this is all about quietening your imposter syndrome.
Melanie, sorry, darling, could you share your screen with everybody? Because at the moment you're just like a little block.
Okay.
Is
so
okay?
You just need to put that on speaker. So you just need to put on speaker view.
It looks fine from my side.
So rather than having gallery view, if you put it on speaker view, and if I'm speaking, you should see my slides.
Apologies.
That makes sense.
Thank you.
That makes sense for everyone. Right. Sorry, it's just the software that I use to kind of push this through. Okay, so we're going to be covering, let's move you out of the way, some definitions and things that we tell ourselves, why imposter syndrome is a relevant topic of discussion, why it's important to manage imposter syndrome with some symptoms and consequences if we don't. And then, most importantly, we're going to look at some different strategies for dealing with imposter syndrome. And time permitting, I'm going to share with you one of my favourite techniques, an NLP technique for dealing with imposter syndrome. Okay. So what on earth is imposter syndrome? So I must admit, I was really relieved when I discovered that imposter syndrome was a thing. And I think I discovered it about 4 years ago. And before that, I must admit, I had started to believe that I was going a bit doolally. I'd had a reasonably successful career. until that point. And then all of a sudden I was doubting myself. I was wondering why I couldn't kind of keep up. You know, why do all these other people in the room seem to understand what's going on? And I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm going to get discovered for being a fraud and all these other kinds of things. And I read an article on it and I was just like, oh yeah, that explains it. That's me. And then I discovered that actually loads of people experience this, and some really quite successful people as well. Now, the thing is, there's lots of different names for this: imposter syndrome, imposter phenomenon, and there's some other kind of names for it. There's not one single definition. So there's some really wordy ones here, which I'm going to talk you through, but quite honestly, they don't necessarily resonate with me. So a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist despite evident success. The point here is that despite evident success, imposters suffer from chronic self-doubt and a sense of intellectual fraudulence that override any feelings of success or external proof of their competence. We've got another one here: a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their accomplishments and has an internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. So this kind of inability to acknowledge and internalize accomplishments is often a key theme of imposter syndrome. So what kinds of things do we tell ourselves when we are experiencing imposter syndrome? Well, lots of different things. These are just some of the examples. So I'm out of my depth. I'm not worthy. I feel like a fraud. I doubt myself. I've just been lucky. I'll get found out. Any others? If you want to just put them in the chat, any other examples that you might be telling yourself, or you might have a little voice in your head telling you when you are experiencing imposter syndrome? They've not found out yet. Great. Yes. But they will do. No, they won't. This is just the voice in our head. You know. Fear of failure. What am I doing here? Yeah. Why am I the only man in the room? Yeah. I often feel that for the other way round, Paul. So yeah, sometimes I've been sat in various meetings and I'm like, why am I the only woman? That you're not good enough. Yeah. Yeah. Great. So not great that you feel them, but great. These are exactly great examples of what we're going through when we are experiencing imposter syndrome. Okay, so is this normal? Well, it's actually perfectly normal. So many of us are kind of on show 24/7, and whether that's in our businesses, whether that's in our families, whether that's on social media, there are high expectations of us from society to kind of get on and get ahead. But often we have, often we have even higher expectations of ourselves as well. So we kind of put that pressure on ourselves, not to mention friends and family. So often they have the best interests at heart for us, but doesn't mean it stops them putting any pressure on us. In addition to this, many of us have amazing dreams and aspirations, and we're kind of taught to dream big and live big and live our best life. And that puts additional pressure on us. And then we're feeling, well, you know, I'm not delivering on the goods. And all we're wanting to be the best versions of ourselves. So, you know, the most glamorous, the slimmest, the fastest, the whatever, the richest, whatever. We put all these different pressures on ourselves. So no wonder we think like this. So for a while I thought, you know, until I discovered what it was, I thought I was the only person that thought this way. But actually, we're in amazingly good company. And I assume that you're here today because you feel some of these things as well. You experience these thoughts as well. But actually, many people experience it. And there was a survey done about 2 years ago now, where they interviewed something like 2,000 people at work in the UK. And of the people that they interviewed, 62% of the workers that they interviewed reported having experienced it at work in the last 12 months, or 12 prior months. Now this went up to 66% for women, but that's still a lot of men as well. So it's not just a female thing, it's definitely something that everybody experiences, or many, many people experience. And the interesting thing is that it can affect high achievers as much as anyone else. Now, some of these people below, so Natalie Portman, Tom Hanks, Emma Watson, David Bowie, Kate Winslet, Sheryl Sandberg, these are people that have openly come out and said that they've experienced it, or they have experienced it in parts of their lives. So, you know, these are just the tip of the iceberg. These are people that are, you know, very successful, very renowned for what they do, what they've done, and yet they experience it as well. And, you know, talk about being in the public eye, or being, you know, having all eyes on them, you know, no wonder they experienced it. But these are some great people. And, you know, if they are experiencing it and they're okay to kind of put their hands up and say, you know, I'm experiencing this, then we're in good company. And I'm happy to be in company with these people. Okay, so in what kinds of situations have you felt like an imposter, and were you telling yourselves? So if you put some comments in the chat then. Oh, we've got some already. Oh, Mandy, yeah, that's a good one. People label you as an expert. Yes, yes. But if other people are telling you that, maybe there's some truth in it. Okay, what other examples have we got?
Sorry, Melanie, when people say, oh, you can do that, no problem at all. And then you actually dying inside thinking, I don't actually know what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a great, you know, when people are, I guess, overly confident in your abilities or your competence. Yeah, great one, thank you. Paul, as the CEO, you're expected to have the answer. Absolutely. But, you know, we don't all have the answers. We're only just, we're humans, aren't we? You know, we're infallible as well. So, absolutely. Saw this in my young operations management team as I was developing them to take on the running of the business. So, oh, okay. So you saw this in other people, Elizabeth, rather than your personal experience. Is that? Yeah. Okay, great.
They lacked belief in some of what they were able to do.
Yeah. But
yeah, they were more than capable.
Absolutely, yeah. And often it takes an outsider to kind of see that, see that perspective. But inside, you know, you're like, oh, who, me? When someone asks a question I don't know the answer to and I didn't expect, yes, when we're caught kind of unawares, definitely we can feel like an imposter. It's like, please don't ask any difficult questions. Common feeling for managers stepping into leadership, absolutely. Yeah, being tasked with leading a project, not knowing where to start and feeling overwhelmed. Yeah, these are all fantastic examples. So be assured you are not alone. This is perfectly normal to be experiencing it in these different situations. So just to share some examples of where I have experienced it in the last few years, and, you know, I'll put my hand up and say, yes, I know how to address my imposter syndrome now, but it doesn't stop me feeling it. So as Simone introduced at the beginning, I was an accountant. I was an accountant for over 2 decades, and I was reasonably successful at what I did, but that didn't stop me feeling that actually I was a pretty rubbish accountant, and, you know, my boss was going to find me out, and, you know, they just realized that actually I couldn't really do my job. I was just good at passing exams in the first place. Doing this presentation, yeah, I mean, yeah, I always put my hand up and put myself forward for opportunities, but then I'm thinking, oh, how am I actually going to go about that? And what if they figure out if I'm really rubbish and don't know what I'm talking about? I was at a conference a couple of years ago. It was in London. It was called We Are the City, and it was full of really empowered, successful women in all different walks of life and business. And I was sat there thinking, I just got a free ticket from work. I'm not capable of, or, you know, I'm not really, you know, here because of who I am. It's just I was lucky getting my name pulled out of a hat. Pitching for business when I first set up my business, and even now sometimes having those discussions around money and my services and things, you know, quite often I feel really uncomfortable. Now, luckily I've become more comfortable at doing this, because if not, I wouldn't still be in business 2 years later. I'd gone for some interviews at work a few years ago. I was put forward for a promotion, and I was down to the last couple of people, and I was convinced that I was only in the running because A, I was female, and B, I was an internal candidate, and the other guy was male and external. So I was just there as a token person. But actually, no, I'd done okay. I got shortlisted for an award. That was pretty scary. Networking, when I first started networking, I'd turn up and I was thinking, oh, I don't even really have a business now. Who am I to be in this room of successful business owners? On a course that I went on, we all had to introduce ourselves, and I just thought, wow, all these people are really successful, and you know, who am I to be there? And as a parent, you know, a lot of the time when my kids were young, I wasn't doing the school drop off and pick up because I was working. I had other people that would look after my kids for me. So when I would turn up at the school gates, I'd have all kinds of comments about, oh, what are you doing here today? So I think this demonstrates that whether we're in our work or in different parts of our lives, it's quite common to feel like an imposter. And don't feel bad if you feel like this, it's quite normal, but there are some things that you can do to address it. So why is it important to manage imposter syndrome? Well, if we leave it unchecked, well, A, it feels uncomfortable and horrible, but if we leave it unchecked, it can become debilitating, and it can have significant negative impacts on us, but also on those around us as well. And I delivered this workshop for some HR professionals a few months ago, and one of them was saying that somebody had actually worried themselves sick. So they were off long-term sick because they had worried themselves about an upcoming reorganisation, and they thought that they would just be out of the door. But actually they were being put forward to a new to lead a new team. So it shows that sometimes the stories that we tell ourselves in our heads can actually really not help us and make us quite poorly. So some symptoms that we might experience include excessive stress, an intense fear of failure, some performance anxiety, and general loss of confidence. So these are things that you can look out for in yourself, but you know, as Elizabeth said earlier, you can also look out for them in other people that you work with as well. So some symptoms that we might see might include procrastination, so putting off things that either we know that deep down we probably are capable of, or other people, you know, they keep putting something off and you're like, well, what's behind this? Well, it could be imposter syndrome. Perfectionism. So we all know deep down that perfection doesn't exist, but it doesn't stop a lot of us trying to do our best, trying to deliver the best that we can. But actually, if we keep striving for that all the time and we're not ever going to, I don't know, send off, you know, deliver on our projects or complete things just because we're fearful that it's not good enough. It might stop us from making decisions. Now, these could be bigger decisions, but it could be, you know, smaller or less consequential ones as well. So that's another sign of imposter syndrome. Aversion to taking risks. And, you know, I've been speaking to quite a lot of people about their work situations at the moment. You know, if they've been made redundant or they're at fear of redundancy, and some of them are fearful of taking risks, and actually they know that deep down they want to go and do something else, but they just want to hang on, they just want to wait until to see what's going to happen. Or maybe they wouldn't put themselves forward for a role that they really like because they don't feel quite up for it, or they're not feeling willing to put themselves out there, take that risk. Micromanagement. So I guess we can see this in ourselves. Sometimes we're kind of not willing to let go of something, or maybe we've delegated it, but we're kind of overseeing something too much. Or it could be with managers or other people that we work with as well. So it's that insecurity, I guess, that's keeping us kind of holding on to something. And then good old workaholism, so working really long hours. Now at the moment with the blurring of lines between work and life, this can show up even more so. But I guess it ties back to perfectionism and some of these other things, micromanagement. And I guess it's that I need to keep going, I need to keep doing this. Maybe if my boss doesn't see that, maybe if my boss doesn't think I can get the job done in my normal hours, that they think that I'm not capable of doing it. So there's, I guess there's that inferiority complex there as well. Okay, so do those all make sense before we move on? Any other symptoms or ways? Okay, so we've got some other examples here. Right, definitely recognise the symptoms. Yes, indecision and haste, making quick decisions. Yeah, sometimes it's the opposite, isn't it? It's not making those decisions, or it's making them quickly. Yeah, great. Okay, so let's move on. So let's imagine that we're feeling like an imposter today within certain aspects of our lives. So based on what we've heard about imposter syndrome so far, what could we do to help deal with those feelings? Now, normally what I do is I turn on my I've got a webcam here and I've got a whiteboard, but maybe if you just put some answers in the chat, what could we do to help with these things of imposter syndrome? So I'm sure you've all got some ideas. Don't think any idea is not helpful, because it might help somebody else. So you're doing other people a favour by sharing this. Feel free to turn on your microphone if you want to share something as well. Rebecca, did you have something to say?
I was just going to say, one tactic is to spend some time reflecting over your career and focusing on the career highlights, and particularly from the angle of, actually, if I wasn't there, how would that company, organisation, team missed out? How might they have missed out on what I could bring?
Yeah.
And we often put things down to luck or other people, but actually be really firm about, actually, what did I bring from a disassociated point of view?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay, so we've got a few here. Great. So be brave. Yes. Seek feedback or make.
Sorry.
Oh.
I think for me personally, because I left school with no qualifications and then took the hard route to get to where I got to today, you always have that bit of self-doubt in your mind. But, you know, I've worked at this organisation now for 19 years, and I've built it up from £100,000 turnover to 4.5 million. So for me, the whole imposter syndrome is about actually acknowledging what I have achieved and patting myself on the back for having that achievement.
Yeah.
But then there's always that bit of doubt in the background, as was said earlier in some of the chat about, well, you'll get found out, that, you know, you're not this person, you know, you're a different individual. So for me, it's about actually acknowledging the success that you have in the career or the work environment where you're actually, you know, doing your day-to-day job. I think that's what it is for me.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I think, you know, after 19 years, I think you would have got found out before that.
Well, I would have thought so, but there's still a doubt, isn't there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, this is just a voice in our head, you know, and it goes back to the definition at the beginning, you know, it's despite this evident success. And it's all very well me saying, oh yeah, well, you've been there 19 years, but if your little voice is chattering away in there, it's about finding ways, your own way to quieten that. So yeah.
One thing I found very useful for myself as well as my team was once a quarter to reflect on what we had actually achieved in the previous quarter and report on it informally, because we are often all too busy running ahead at 5 million miles an hour on to the next things that need doing, and we never stop to look at what we've achieved. And I always find that really very productive, very helpful.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I sometimes find that when I worry about something or I go into it and I think I haven't got what it takes, sometimes if I kind of write down what that thing is, and I almost see it like a little gnat flying around your head, and if you need to swat a gnat, you need to hit it like 10 times. So what I do is write 10 things as to why that truth that I've created isn't actually true, if that makes sense. And I find that's quite helpful, because then, and it's a bit like what Paul was saying, it makes you realize what you are good at, but you sometimes writing it down brings it better to your mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's getting it out of your mind, which is you know, thoughts and worries and voices buzzing around, and then it's putting it on paper, and it's there in black and white. Then that's a great answer. I'm gonna borrow that one for future reference.
It's a gnat and SWAT analogy. So
gnat and SWAT, yes.
someone taught me that years and years ago, and I've used it in so many different situations. When you feel either unconfident or overwhelmed by something, it just brings your mind back to the fact that you're probably spiraling a little bit. Do you know if that makes sense? Not thinking rationally.
Great one. Great.
I always find that we try to compare ourselves with other people all the time. Probably a bit like the gentleman said, he didn't have a formal education, you know, an education, didn't have a university degree, and we always think we're not as good as these other people, but we are. We've just all been on a different journey, and I think what you said is right. I sometimes think we always try and act quickly when we need to do things, because we feel if you're a confident person, you'll know what to do exactly then. But I think if you're not sure, just take a step back and just get yourself together and then try and get your confidence back. I think it's all to do with confidence, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
I think the comparison thing is really important. We often compare ourselves normally unfavourably against other people. And the other resource available could be feedback. If you work for an organisation that has feedback mechanisms, we often again focus on the negative because that's how we're primed, and you know we're primed to look out for danger. But actually reminding ourselves or re-looking at the positive bits of feedback we've had, and even sometimes keeping them in a folder, that when these imposter feelings are coming through, you can look back over the positive feedback that you've had over the years, and it starts to change the narrative that you have in your head a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great one. So what else have we got here? To seek feedback, yeah, that's what you just said, wasn't it, as well, Rebecca? Finding an ally, absolutely. Taking the time to reflect on what might be causing the feelings. Yeah, sometimes it's not just about addressing the symptoms, but it's about digging down a little bit to think, well, why is it? Why might I be feeling that way? And I guess going back to Paul's example, Paul, it's not like you can go back to when you were 16 or 18 and make some different choices about your education at this point in time. That's too late. However, look how far you've come, and actually recognize, you know, the steps that you've taken, and more importantly, that impact that you've told us about, you know, which is invaluable. And maybe some people that have got a degree or some other qualification, maybe they've actually not achieved some of the great things that you have. So,
mental.
Calm down, tell your inner self that you're good enough, can achieve. Yeah, remain curious. Oh, I like that one. Ask great questions. Great. Do you want to tell us about that one, Malcolm?
Sure. I think, I've coached a couple of senior people who have the feelings of imposter syndrome, but they don't lack confidence. They are confident type individuals, both male and female. So it's not an insecurity that causes them to feel that they're an imposter. It is literally they've been put into a group, an established group, and they're not a member of that clique yet. And I always coach them to say, look, you've got a real powerful window of opportunity here to ask all the naive questions that everyone else in the room thinks they know the answer to. And you'll discover that actually there's a whole different set of assumptions being deployed here. You can be a naive challenger for a short period of time, and then of course you will be grabbed by the prevailing paradigm and you will just become another one of the team. So I tend to reposition the imposter syndrome by giving it a different title. You are a naive challenger. That's a good thing to be.
Yeah, I like that.
But don't expect to be popular.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. Try and acknowledge all the answers you don't have and just different things. Yeah, you know, we're all bringing different things to the party. That's what I always say. So yeah, just because you don't know some of the answers, maybe you've got other experience or other answers or just a different perspective, which can actually help shed some light on a situation. Find a mentor, absolutely. Try to give positive feedback to my team. Yes, okay, giving positive feedback to others is a great one. Yeah. Recognizing the power of vulnerability in leadership. Yeah, that's great. you want to share a bit more about that one, Kimberly?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. The reason I put that is because as I've journeyed in my own career and I've communicated with colleagues, I've seen the power of vulnerability and sharing my own experiences. And I know at times vulnerability can be seen as a weakness, but it's definitely a common denominator in relationships that people tend to gravitate that, oh, wow, this person who's in leadership perhaps struggles in this area or needs to develop it. And I've definitely found that with the boards that I sit on and in my own career, that being vulnerable has allowed me to make lasting connections. So I think it's really powerful. And I don't know if you're familiar with Brene Brown, but she's very, she speaks a lot of that as well. And I think vulnerability is really important nowadays as well.
Yeah. And it's just about being authentic, isn't it? And again, people are drawn, you know, not vulnerable, but to authentic people. And actually, if you're showing up in your true self, sometimes that is vulnerable. But yeah, people are going to see the power of that as well. Yeah. Thank you. And then Susanna, the imposter syndrome very often masks and overcompensated by appearing confident. Yeah. I mean, sometimes people appear overconfident, and I kind of think, what's behind that? You know, what are they hiding? How they're really feeling? And I think when you dig down, often some of the people that you feel have kind of got it sorted are not feeling quite as sorted. And you know, it's great for them to be doing something to be dealing with it, but sometimes the cracks appear as well. So great, some great solutions there. Thank you very much. Hopefully you've all had a chance to share and you've all taken something away from that. So I'm going to share some of my ideas now, some of which are similar and some are a little different as well. So sorry this page is so crowded. Normally I kind of bring up the different things point by point, but in this setting we're just going to be talking through them quickly. So accept that it's okay to feel it. So, you know, it is so prevalent that, you know, it's okay to feel this, and actually the fact that people talk about it and it now has a name that people can kind of think, oh yes, that's what's going on here, I think is a good thing. It's okay as long as it doesn't hold you back too much. So if it doesn't inhibit your ability or cripple your progression or make you ill, but feeling it's okay. So different things that we can do. So some positive affirmations. So whether you, I guess, give yourself some mantras or something that you chant at yourself, or I write down a list of my kind of positive intentions and things at the start of each day. That helps me to become who I am, who I want to be. But I know people that use them in different ways. I know sticking post-its around their mirrors or their laptops, or having a recording of their voice or somebody else telling them positive things. Embracing who you are. So, you know, we've all been on our own journey, and actually we've all got things that make us who we are in our backpack. So, you know, if I've got a certain set of skills and strengths, okay, it might look a little bit different from yours, but it just makes us who we all are. And it's about understanding what those strengths and skills are to help us be the best that we can be and show up in that way. Consider feedback from others. So I think it was Rebecca that said about this, but you know, people don't give you feedback just for the hell of it. You know, I guess sometimes they do if they're part of it, if it's part of a, you know, a performance management cycle or things. But most people that give you feedback generally mean it. And whether it's positive or constructive feedback, it is a gift. And often when people take the effort to give you a compliment or give you some feedback, it's kind of natural and it's off the cuff. And they're not saying it just to make you feel better. They're saying it because they truly appreciate these things in you. So don't deflect it back, kind of thank them for the feedback, let it settle. And yeah, keep some kind of log of it, whether it's on LinkedIn in terms of recommendations, or whether you've got a folder or a, you know, an inbox or something that where you can keep these different things and refer back to them if you're having a bit of a wobble. Some preparations. So sometimes just helping you know what's coming, you know, the day ahead, the week ahead, whatever. What do I need? What kind of physical things do I need with me to help me through this and get prepared? Tell yourself you're going to enjoy this. So sometimes our brain gets kind of confused by the messages, but actually if you give your brain that positive message, right, we're going to enjoy this, we're going to have fun, or this is going to be a fun, you know, positive experience. Hopefully that will have a positive impact on how you actually experience something as well. So this one here, take stock of all the things you've done and how far you've come. That's similar a bit to the remind yourselves and the strengths and the skills, but it's just looking back over that journey and actually what are all the amazing things that you do. And typically we don't do this often enough. So maybe if it's part of a, you know, periodic performance review or when we're updating our CVs or anything, but actually we can do this at any time, just to look back and say, you know, who are we? What have we done? Now, oh, I had a piece of paper over there. I was asked to do an exercise by my coach a couple of weeks ago, and it was to write down 50 to 100 things that I'm proud of. And I was just like, what? You know, I'm never going to be able to do that. And I sat down and I gave myself 20 minutes, half an hour maybe, and I managed to come up 100 things that I have achieved, things I'm proud of. Actually, if we give ourselves the time and the space and allow ourselves to do that and kind of turn on those positive memories, you know, it's a great opportunity to do that. And I felt euphoric afterwards. I actually went and made some videos and stuff because I just felt so empowered by me, basically, by the things that I've done and the, you know, what I've done to get where I am. Acting as if or adopting a persona. Yeah, I mean, this might be masking it, but sometimes I just think, actually, I'm going to go and I'm going to be that confident person today, and I'm going to show up as whoever. And it's a bit of fun, you know, it's as if I'm wearing a costume or I've got a hat on or, you know, I'm in fancy dress. But actually, you know, sometimes that can feel quite liberating as well, because I'm not necessarily just showing up as me. And I've done this in things like networking groups, or if I'm going to maybe a party and I don't know too many people, you know, where it's, I guess, a safe-ish environment. But yeah, I mean, it might work for you, it might not. Like with a lot of these suggestions, you know, pick some that resonate with you and try them on. Embrace your status. I think this is a good one. So whether you are that new person or whether you've been somewhere a long time and you're, I guess, regarded as an expert or just somebody that knows a lot about that organization, use that status to your advantage. So if you're a new person, you know, yes, to Malcolm's point about asking those questions, being curious, or, you know, saying, yep, it's my first day, I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable or whatever, and kind of just label it. And I think people will help you to feel better. And likewise, if you're somebody that sees people feeling uncomfortable, do something to kind of put them at ease as well. Limiting beliefs. So we all have beliefs. So beliefs are, I guess, part of our DNA, almost part of our makeup. And we've collected a lot of these back from our childhood. So a lot of these are with us for a long time. And they come from our teachers or our families, you know, oh, no one in our family is ever good at maths, or, oh, you've always been the, you know, sociable one, or whatever. So you kind of carry these labels around with you. And often they're not even your beliefs in the first place, they're other people's, but you adopt them. And sometimes they're just not very helpful, but ultimately they're just stories that we tell ourselves. They're not truth or they're not fact. And we can change these. Now, they might take a little bit of time because they can be quite stubborn, but challenge some of those things that we believe. Name your inner imposter. So this is one of mine, and my inner imposter is called Izzy. And sometimes I just have to turn her off because she's just annoying me. She's like Alexa or something buzzing in my ear. And yeah, one of the things that I sometimes need to do is just say, look, I've got this. So imagine that you've got somebody driving your car with you. You've got that person sitting in your passenger seat, or worse still, backseat driver, and they're nattering on at you. And sometimes it's just like, I'm driving, I'm in charge here. I know where I'm going. I've got this. And just kind of quietening them in that way. Identify peers and colleagues who you can speak to. I think we've talked about that earlier. But make sure it's somebody that's neutral, somebody that you trust. And it could be a colleague, a family member, a friend, a coach, a mentor, whoever. Somebody that is willing just to listen sometimes, and, you know, give you that positive encouragement. Just a few more. So cultivating more helpful patterns of thinking. So sometimes this is around reframing things. So, you know, I feel like, you know, I'm going to be an imposter standing up talking to you guys, but I've got some interesting thoughts and tools that I use that I know that people have shared with me in other workshops. I can share this with you. And if even half of you take something away from this, then I'm doing my job, and that makes me feel good. So yeah, I might feel like an imposter, but I'm going to stand up and do this. And then coaching and NLP can also help with this as well. So now that we've gone through these, are there any others that you can think of that might be helpful to share? So I'm just going to have a look at the, oh, we've got lots of comments here. Yes, so not deflecting the feedback. Yes, absolutely. Yes, and that's a great one. Yes, networking, often people are feeling that, absolutely, Mandy. Yes, you have this impression that everybody else is having a great time and knows everybody, but often we all feel a little bit out of it. Yes, well done, Simone, for passing your, that sounds like a hard one, non-finance director's exam. Yeah. Yeah, the chimp paradox, that's a great one. Yeah, great one. Excellent. Well, the good news is that I'm going to share one of my NLP tools with you. So this is something that I use a lot, and it's called an anchor. So NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is a bunch of different tools and techniques that can be useful in terms of helping us be the best that we can be. And they can focus on lots of different things, but the ones that I use a lot in my coaching is around helping people manage their states. And states are kind of our way of being in the moment. It's our mood, it's the way that we feel. And it's a sum of lots of things kind of added together. So it's our physiology, it's our thinking, it's our emotions. And the important thing about states is we create them ourselves. You might not realize this, but things that we do can create these states. Now, often we see the word state as a negative thing. So if you say, oh, somebody's in a bit of a state, or if you're running late for a meeting or something and you arrive and you're all hot and bothered, you're like, oh, I'm in a bit of a state. But actually states can be positive as well. And states are important because they can impact our capabilities and kind of how we show up and the results that we get as well. Now, had I been running around with my kids just prior to this meeting, or if I'd been driving out somewhere, which I rarely do these days, and I was late and I was all panicked, I wouldn't be in a nice calm state. Whereas I took some time before this to kind of get myself into a positive state to be, you know, to show up and be the best that I can be. So that's a little bit of background about states. Now, anchors is the tool that I'm going to be talking about today. So we all have anchors, and these are just connections between stimulus and an emotional response. Now, I say we all have them. You know, just sometimes when you smell something and you're like, oh, that smell reminds me of my school or my grandma's pie or whatever. And maybe we see something. For me, I just love seeing wildflowers, so poppies, daffodils, snowdrops, and they all kind of take me to like a different feeling and a different different emotions that I'm feeling. Now we can have them with all our senses, but they can be a really quick reminder to take you to a different state. And NLP anchors are helping you to create these states so you can bring them back on demand. Now, I use two different ones here, so I'm just going to flip my screen so you can see me. Can you see me? Hopefully. I'll just flip my screen so I can see you guys. Yeah. So the first one I want to tell you about is called a kinesthetic anchor. And I use these typically on a knuckle because we have lots of knuckles, so we can anchor lots of different emotions. And also, we generally have our knuckles accessible to us. So whether we're sat down and they're kind of on our laps, or whether if we walk into a room, maybe we have them here or behind our backs. And nobody needs to know that we're doing this. So if you're all willing to try this out, then you'll have a gift that you can take away with you. So we're talking about imposter syndrome. So how would we like to feel? Instead, maybe we'd like to feel confident. So let's just take confident as a feeling. So I'd like you to all close your eyes. I have mine closed as well. Nobody can see each other. And I'd like you to take yourself to a situation that you've experienced before in your past where you felt confident. And I want you to be in that situation. So imagine that you're in that situation and see what you see, hear what you hear, and feel what you feel. And I want you to really notice all these sensations around you. And I want you to really feel that confidence. And then I want you to take one of your fingers and press one of your knuckles as though you're pressing a doorbell. So kind of quite a firm pressure, and continue to see what you see, hear what you hear, feel what you feel. And really feel confident. And then I want you to come back to the room, open your eyes, be back in the room. And I want you to just now press your anchor, press your doorbell. And just hopefully you'll have a wave of warmth and comfort. And you might feel really quite a strong sense of confidence as well. Now, maybe you're sat there thinking, oh, I didn't really pick the best example. Maybe you're thinking, you know, oh, I should have thought of that time when I was, you know, whatever, just got promoted or presented in this meeting or whatever. You can top this up afterwards. So you know how to do this now. You can top up your own anchor. And the other thing is, if you find yourself in these situations and think, oh, I'd like to capture that emotion. So whether it's pride or confidence or credibility or whatever it is, you've got other knuckles. So you can either top up the one that you've already got to kind of make that stronger, or you can use other knuckles, and you can use elbows and things as well. But the knuckles are great because they're really discreet, and you can find these, you can quickly find them, whether it's dark or in a crowded room or in an interview or whatever. You can bring this back. So that's the kinesthetic anchor that I use. The other one is called the Circle of Excellence. So I use this particularly when I'm public speaking or something. So I'm sat down today, but if I'm talking in a room of people, I have to stand up. I just feel very uncomfortable, even around a table or something. I like to stand up. And I step into my invisible circle of excellence. So I'll just explain this one. So in front of me, I have an invisible circle. It's about, I don't know, 70 centimeters diameter. And I step into it. And when I step into it, I know you've lost my head now, I feel confident and credible. And the way I set that, so I step in, I take myself to that time where I feel confident and credible. And I see what I see, I hear what I hear, I feel what I feel, and then I step out. So I've set the confidence. And then I think of the time when I feel credible, and I step in, and I see what I see, I hear what I hear, I feel what I feel, and I step out. And I've been using this for a couple of years now. I used to have my invisible circle in my invisible pocket, and I used to physically get it out and lay it out in front of me and step into it. I now just know it's there. So literally it's the stepping that is now the anchor for me. Somebody else on one of my workshops said they use it in a door frame. So they basically, it's almost like a jelly kind of thing, and they like fling it at a door frame. And as they walk through that door, that is then their circle of excellence. So they've got a kind of a vertical one. Mine's just a little one on the floor. But I've used this a lot, as I said, for public speaking. I've used it for jumping off a diving board. Don't ask, it was just something I felt compelled to do, but that really terrified me. So I've used these. I use the kinesthetic one. I've used it in interviews. I've used it on a triathlon on my thumb to help me get around the bike part, to keep me going, to get to the run. So I do use these a lot in my everyday life as well as my work life as well. And I've shared these with a lot of people, and they're generally very well received. So I shall go back to my presentation. So just to repeat these, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. If what you're doing is not working for you, do something different, and the more choices you have, the greater chance of success. So what are your key takeaways from today? What actions will you take, and when will you do them? So feel free to put these in the chat, or if you want to put on your microphone and talk, please do that as well. So I'll just have a look in the chat. Great, the anchors are popular. Changing the narrative. Yeah, that's a good one, Rebecca. If my imposter syndrome stopped me from doing X, Y, Z, what would others be missing out on? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can't do this yet. Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, I mean, we're all learning. Every day is a school day. And actually, I mean, if I just think about all the things that I've learned just in the lockdown, you know, or since the beginning of the lockdown, you know, every day we're learning new things. Yeah, others are feeling the same when networking, definitely. List of things to be proud of. Yeah, start with 20, keep adding. Brilliant. Don't be afraid, you can do it. Water skiing, Sharon, that sounds amazing. Wow. Yeah. And, you know, it goes back to, was it Henry Ford? If you believe you can or believe you can't, you're probably right. So whatever you believe, you know, it's just stories that we're telling ourselves. Yeah, great. Any other points that you'd like to add in terms of things that you're going to take away from this? Hanging successes on your wall. Brilliant. Where's Terry? Oh, yeah, great. What have you got on your wall, Terry? Do you want to tell us?
Reminder of Concord.
Brilliant.
Driver of the day at Silverstone.
Cool.
Red Square.
Cool.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just
great.
Desperate, you see, for some kind of bolster to keep me going.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, in yeah, no, I think that's.
Everybody burst out laughing when I said that.
Yeah, no,
well, of course I wouldn't be able to hear them anyway, would I?
No, I think that's great, and it's, you know, honestly, it doesn't matter what other people think; it's what you think. So, you know,
now that's where you're wrong.
Well, why does it matter what other people think?
No, I was joking then as well.
I think most people are too stuck in their own heads, really.
Yeah, well, I've been in that club for a very, very long time.
So, you know, and we've all got things that challenge us. You know, I've had some really interesting conversations with people, and, you know, I think, wow, this is going to be my next client, and they come back and they say, no, I don't think we're a good fit for each other. You know, some will, some won't. So what? We've almost got to sometimes just, it's part of the journey, part of the adventure. Maybe they're just not the right people for us, or whatever. And, you know, it's not always easy to take that in the moment, because, you know, we want people to like us and we want to be successful and popular, but it's not always going to be the right time and the right place for those people. Yeah. Be proud of yourself.
Sorry, Melanie, there is a saying that we can't control people, places and things. All we can do is control our reaction to them, or our response, whether it's fast or a response that is slower.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got to recognise, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lack of control sometimes, it's like
yeah.
I do think these days that we have so many distractions as well, and I do think we are continually comparing ourselves to other people, whereas if we just focus on ourselves and feel good about ourselves, you can achieve anything you want, really.
Absolutely.
Sometimes there's too much noise.
Yeah. You know, one of the points is we can do anything, we just can't do everything, and it's about choosing where we want to put our focus and our energy. And with those things that are really important to us, we'll achieve them. The other things, maybe they just weren't meant to be. You can't do everything. Yeah. So great point there. A couple of great points. Mandy, remember, we're all different. We know different things, so don't compare. Yeah. And Sharon, be proud of yourself. So yeah, great. So thank you, everyone. That was great.
Oh, Melanie, thank you so much. What an absolutely incredibly positive and lunchtime today. I think everyone will agree. Thank you very much indeed for that. I think everyone's asked an awful lot of questions, but please get in touch with Melanie. As I said, she uses some amazing tools and different things, motivational mapping and amazing things that Melanie can do with various people. You've got her contact details there. Any last minute questions, anybody? Or else we'll call the webinar to an end. But I'm grateful that you could join us. And if you'd like to, if anybody is on the call that is not a member of the IOD, please let either Caroline or myself, Caroline who organised the meeting, know, so we can let you know a bit more about IOD membership. But I know that Caroline will be sending you the recording and some details about our upcoming webinars as well. And we love to do a kind of virtual round of applause if we can. So after 3, 1, 2, 3. And thank you very much indeed, Melanie. Is there any last minute questions? Sorry, if there is, please feel free. No? Okay, that's great. Please stay safe, everybody, and thank you again, Melanie. Thank you. Take care.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was really interactive. Well done, Melanie. That was great. It was brilliant. Everybody really got into it. It's fantastic. Really fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good when that happens because it just makes it. Well, the thing is, everyone learns from other people. So yeah, I've got certain things that I can share with them, but I'm kind of really facilitating the discussion between
exactly.
So,
exactly. And look at that. You know, you've got people with multi